Vitality's dominant start to this 2025 season is one of the biggest storylines in the Counter-Strike 2 scene right now, and it seems like the addition of ROPS might have been the best move in the offseason. Certainly, Eternal Fire adding Joda would be put in that category, Liquid adding Nerts, and now likely adding Shuhei. Depending on when this video comes out, we'll know the answer to that question or not. Well, those are certainly moves that will improve that team, and there's been some other good moves out there as well, but what Vitality has done to kick off this year is truly special. This team is starting to look like one of the most dominant teams we may see in Counter-Strike if they can keep up this pace. They are showing signs of being an Astralis era level team or something along those lines that we had in CSGO, and perhaps could find the first era in CS2 if they are able to keep up this pace, go on to win the Austin Major, and just have a really sick first half of the year. We very well may be living in the first era of CS2, and it will belong to Vitality. And so with this video, I just want to talk about what we've been seeing from Vitality, where they've come from, where they're at, and where they might go. And let's just hop into it, because for me, Vitality was the most consistent team of 2024. Yes, they didn't win a major. Yes, they only had one win. They won IM Cologne, and that was it. Certainly Spirit, had a fiery into the year with their win at Shanghai. Certainly Navi had the Copenhagen major to their name, and they had that run where they made like 6 big arena finals in a row and won 3 of them, but then cooled off when it came to Shanghai. But when you really look at it, Vitality was so persistent in 2024. Their worst finish at a LAN was near the beginning of the year at Katowice, where they came last, 13th, 16th place. But after that, they never finished outside the top 8 for the entire year. They were top 8 at the Shanghai Major to close the year. They were top 8 at EWC with the weird format, so I don't really look at that too much. And then they were top 8 at EPL Season 20. But then they were 5th, 6th at IM Rio, top 4 at the Copenhagen Major, the Blast Spring Final, and the Blast Fall Final. And they made the grand finals of EPL Season 19 and IM Dallas, coming second place at both of those events. And then, of course, they won IM Cologne. So when you consider the fact that they only had one finish outside the top 8 for the entire year, and they only had like 2 or 3 top 8 finishes, and the rest were 5th, 6th, or better, mostly top 4s and second place finishes. I mean, yeah, that is just consistency at its finest as far as being a top 5 team for the entire year and truly always being a contender to win a title in every single tournament that they played. Now, it is, again, a little bit damning that they only did win the one title at Cologne. When you think about some of the other teams that are in the top 5 that were all able to achieve more victories than they were able to achieve, but still, the consistency was there. They played 49 BO3 of BO5s last year and had a 33-16 record. Of course, I thought that they had some fluky losses to Astralis at the Blast groups and then Instant Heroic at Katowice. After that, they were basically on a 33-13 record when it came to BO3s and best of 5s. And they had a 90 map wins and 45 map losses for the year. They were 4-2 head-to-head against FaZe. They were 2-0 versus Mongols. They were 1-0 against Navi. 2-2 versus G2. 1-1 versus Spirit. They lost to Eternal Fire the one time they did play them. Mouse was the only team besides Eternal Fire and Heroic and VP, funnily enough, who had head-to-head advantages over Vitality. Mouse was ahead of them 2-1. Heroic was ahead of them 2-1, though with different rosters. And then VP was ahead of them 2-0. Again, strangely enough, that was, kind of how things shook out. But against, the top teams in the world, they were certainly either beating them or pretty even with them, or in a couple of rare cases, they were a little bit below them head-to-head. But overall, again, one of the strongest teams there. They had an incredible map pool. They were mega on DusT 2, 14-6 record last year. Very good on Mirage, 20-7 record on that map last year. 19-6 record on Nuke, super strong there. Then they could play Vertigo to a high level, 10-4 record on Vertigo. They didn't play Ancient, obviously, and I honestly thought they were great on Anubis the first half of the year, but just struggled in the back half of 2024. 13-10 record as well on Inferno, so that map was always kind of hit or miss. But still, they had 4 very strong maps that they could play. They had a period of time where they were very good on Anubis, so at a time they had like a true 5 map pool where they were really strong on all 5, and it was really just the fact that they didn't play Ancient and that their Inferno was a little bit shaky that really hurt them. Technically speaking, I thought they were very damn sound. They were a team that certainly could play out a default very effectively. The roles were very well established. They were very good at changing the pace. Apex was very good at throwing like dual pressure plays or big feints, even at times big fakes. Really good at misdirection. Really good at just managing the team in the mid round and getting the most out of them. Zawu was a top 3 player in the world that year as a true hybrid. He was actually doing a lot of opening attempts on the T side, 22% opening attempts on the T side with a 60% success rate, which is very high. Yes, he wasn't taking as many opening duels as a true entry rifler would, but he was still taking a pretty high percentage, and he was very successful at 60%. That's insane, and he was very dominant on the CT side in opening duels as well. He was top 2 in virtually every metric you can think of, and then he was top 5 in total opening kills and number 4 in opening kills per round. But other than that, again, when it came to like rating, KD, ADR, KPR, success in opening duels, he was top 2 in all those categories and was, again, one of the best players in the world. Flames was certainly a top 10 to 15 level player. He was their main entry fragger, taking about 28% of the opening duels on the T side with a 46% success rate. Very high. Also very strong on the CT side. Top 10 rated player. One of the best in opening kills per round and success in opening duels as well for the year. And then, of course, Spinks was near Flames, kind of in the ranking order. Great for his role on T side and fantastic defensively. He was top 8 rated player and then had one of the best KPRs and success in opening duels, even though he didn't take very many of them as well. So just, again, a team that had tons of great results. They were very good, series, best of 3, best of 5 record, very good map record. 3 very strong players, to be the stars of the team, and the roles made sense where they were getting that star power from, spread out amongst those 3 players. And then Mezzi and Apex were doing their job. Let's be honest. They weren't the strongest fraggers, but I thought they fulfilled their roles very well, and this team was a very high-functioning team. Again, the only mark against them was the trophy cabinet was a little bit empty, considering the level of talent that they had, how they looked tactically, how good their map pool was. They would just sometimes crumble in those finals. That they could have had probably 3 or 4 titles last year if things would have played out just slightly differently than it did. But it did hurt. But now, bringing in Rops for Spinks, right now they are crushing it because, yes, they came top 8 at the Blast Bounty to kick off the year, but now they have 1 IM Katowice, they have 1 EPL Season 21, and now they just won the Blast Open at Lisbon event where they have been tearing up everyone. They have not lost a best of 3 or best of 5 since their opening LAN best of 3 of the year against Eternal Fire at Blast Bounty. They have won 16 BO3s in a row. This is not far behind like Astralis era series record or like what Liquid did in 2019. Obviously, no one's going to touch the record that NIP had at the beginning of CSGO, like the first year and a half or whatever that they were playing. No one's ever going to get to that crazy level that they won like 80-something maps in a row, so it was a lot of best of 3s in a row. But they are really climbing the charts of teams that are in a very rare category of having won that many series in a row, and they have a 35-8 map record on LAN. It is unreal. When you look at them against the top teams in the world right now, they have lost to Eternal Fire the one time they played them. That was that opening best of 3 at Blast Bounty I was talking about. That's the only series loss they have this year. But they are 2-0 against 3D Max, 1-0 against Astralis, 1-0 against Made in Brazil, 1-0 against Team Liquid, 1-0 against FaZe, 2-0 against Virtus Pro, 2-0 against Mongols, 2-0 against Spirit, and 4-0 against Mousesports. So against the other teams that are at or near the top 5, which would essentially be Mongols, Spirit, and Mousesports, they have beaten all those teams every time they have played them, and at least 2 times, with Mongols and Spirit, and then 4 times for Mousesports. And then they're beating, some of the teams that are just outside the top 5, like FaZe. They beat them the one time they played them. Team Liquid, who is still kind of a top 10 team, I would consider. They beat them the one time they played them. 3D Max, a team that's kind of hovering around top 15-ish maybe. Yes, they don't have the most firepower in the world, in my opinion, but I think they're, a pretty strong tactical team. I do want to give them that credit. I think, again, they're probably somewhere in the top 15. They've beaten them when they've played them. So they are doing everything that they possibly can to assert themselves as the best team in the world. I mean, they are passing every single test that's being put in front of them as far as their overall record. Then, when you look at their map pool, it's absolutely incredible. They have turned their Inferno around completely from being a hit-or-miss team on Inferno to now they are 9-0 on Inferno. They are beating everybody there. Then, they've maintained the strength on DusT 2. That was a mega map for them last year. It still is 8-1 record. Then Train, they're 3-0, so they're an early adopter of Train. They're being successful on it, right? Then after that, they're 6-2 on Nuke. So Nuke was a map for them last year that, in my opinion, was high on the food chain for them. It was just behind their DusT 2 and Mirage. And they have maintained that strength as well, 6-2 record. They're 4-2 on Mirage, so they're roughly on the same pace as they kind of were last year on Mirage, in my opinion, just based on the results. And then they're 5-3 on Anubis. That's the weakest map they play, but they've won their last 4 games in a row. So their worst map, theoretically, Anubis, they still won their last 4 games in a row and still have a positive win rate. So they have a positive win rate every single map that they play. They don't play Ancient, obviously. Then when you look at these maps a little bit deeper, on DusT 2, their only losses to Mousesports, 11-13. They've won the other 8 games. And they very easily could have won that 11-13 game against Mouse, and they could very easily be 9-0 on DusT 2, so they'd be undefeated on 2 maps at that point. They were 2 rounds away from being undefeated on 2 maps this year so far, after 3 major tournaments. Incredible. Their 2 nuke losses, one of them are OT to Mongols, and the other one is to Spirit, who is a obviously very deadly team on nuke. So, yeah, their nuke, incredible. Then on Mirage, their 2 losses were both 11-13 to Mousesports and then Eternal Fire. So even when they've lost Mirage, of the 6 times they've played it, they've lost it twice. It's been incredibly close games, both of them. Then their 3 losses on Anubis are to Eternal Fire, FaZe, and Made in Brazil. But again, they've won their last 4 in a row against Liquid, Mongols, Virtus Pro, and Spirit, and all of those wins were very convincing. So showing improvement on that map at this point. When you look at players right now, ZywOo is the number 1 player in the world right now. Donk is a very close second. I will certainly admit that. But I do think that ZywOo, right now for the first quarter of 2025, would have to be considered number 1, in my opinion, as we get into April. We've gone through 4 months this year. He is number 1 rated, tied with Donk. Number 1 KD, second in average damage per round, second in kills per round, number 1 in cast, number 1 in success in opening duels, number 3 in clutches 1. So not only is he helping you open up things and do incredible in the mid round, he's also clutching in the late round. His opening attempt rate on the T side is lower than last year. He was like at 22% last year. This year, he's at 18% with a 65% success rate. And then on the CT side, he takes a fair amount of opening duels, and he has a 73% success rate at it. ZywOo is absolutely bonkers this year, as he's been for a while. I mean, the dude's been a top-level player, top 3 guy for many years at this point, but he is right now clearly number 1. Again, Donk, you can make an argument for him, and I do think Donk is probably second, but ZywOo looks like the number 1 player in the world. He has elevated himself even higher somehow. Then Rops is a top 5 player in the world for the first quarter of 2025. I don't see how you could argue that he isn't at least 5th. He is number 4 rated. He's in the top 4 when it comes to deaths per round, so not dying very often. He is top 5 in rounds with 1 or more kills. He's top 4 on cast, and he's very solid when it comes to average damage per round, kills per round, and he's just 5 clutches behind ZywOo, who's number 3 in the world, and clutches 1. And then Mezzi's actually only just a few behind him, so Mezzi's even doing a pretty good job in the clutch department. And he is doing his job whenever he does have to take opening fights on the T side. Again, it's a low percentage, 16%, but 51% successful. So on the extremities, when he does have to take an opening duel, he's winning over half of them still, which is incredible. And then his CT defense is absolutely phenomenal. Then Flames, I think you have to say that he's a top 10 player in the world right now. He's number 5 when it comes to rating. He's number 3 in opening kills per round. His average damage per round and kills per round are solid. He's taking a 30% opening on the T side rate, which is one of the highest out there. I mean, again, you have very few people who are breaking the 30% range when it comes to entry rifling. Yes, you put Donk up there. Yes, there's a couple other entry riflers who are just as aggressive. Xantares has been that way in the past. Elise has been that way in the past. Kerrigan, funnily enough, takes a ton. He's probably up there. There's a handful of names, but most people are kind of in that mid to high 20% range. But Flames is breaking 30% with a great success rate at 44%. Yeah, it's not as flashy as how high ZywOo's is, but ZywOo's taking far less of them. And yeah, no one's matching Donk right now, where he's like lights out in the entry category, but these are still really good entry numbers. And then on the CT side, he's taking, I think, the highest amount of opening attempts on the CT side for this team, and he's 62% successful at doing it defensively, and he just plays his roles very, very well. So they're basically matching their firepower from last year and then building upon it with even higher, because ZywOo's at an even higher level compared to the rest of the field so far this year than he was last year. Rops is higher than he was last year at this point. And then, yeah, Flames is maintaining his status as, one of the best players in the world, particularly for his role as an entry rifler. Then I think Mezzi and Apex are doing great for their roles. Apex actually is number 10 in the world right now for success in opening duels, and he is taking 20% of the opening attempts on the T side, so he's second behind Flames in that regard, which a lot of IGLs are kind of the second entry of their respective teams. You know, you look at someone like Chopper, you look at Kerrigan, who sometimes can be the primary entry for his team. You look at what Twist was kind of doing with Liquid lately with Nerds. You look at, you know, someone like a Blitz or a Big Uzera. You know, there's a lot of, you know, entry IGL type figures out there, and Apex is kind of one of them. 20% opening on the T side, 48% success rate. That's ludicrous for an IGL right now so far for this first quarter of the year. Again, the only IGLs that are usually putting up those types of numbers are like a Twist, a Blitz, and actually Big Uzera's kind of been cooled off this year compared to last year. So again, not many people doing that. Maka is actually up there for 30 max as an IGL who can also put up some numbers. Want to give him a shout out too. But what Apex is doing is phenomenal so far, fragging wise. Will you be able to keep it up? That's tough to say. History probably tells us probably not to this level, but he's still up there. He's still doing quite well. And if he just stay at this level, and even if he drops off a little bit, he's still doing really damn good. And I got this stat from Yanko on Twitter, so shout out to Yanko for this one. I want to always pay credit to the sources I get it from. Apex in the 3 grand finals they've played this year, he had a 1.37 rating against Spirit at Katowice, a 1.24 rating against Mouse Sports at EPL, and then a 1.09 rating at Blast. So in the big games, this guy is contributing at a very high level next to their star players in Flames, Drops, and Ziwu. Incredible stuff. And then Mezzi's been doing fine. I will say he struggled a bit in their last 2 series they played in Lisbon against Mouse and Spirit, but otherwise, he has played well in most of the series they've played this year, aside from a couple of struggles against some of the really highly skilled teams like G2, Spirit, and Mouse Sports, who just sometimes have like such heavy hitters that he can get a little bit overwhelmed at times in those regards. But he's doing a great job defensively in his roles, in the position that he is playing. He is playing them very well. He's doing his job on T side. And so this team is certainly incredibly well-rounded. And then when it comes to just looking at them tactically, they are just as strong as they were last year, this year, if not better. You know, on Anubis, they gave Rops both his spots on the A side of the map. Flames took Spinks' spot on the CT side, playing inside the B connector, and he's doing it to a very good level. And then we see everyone else, you know, playing their normal spots and doing really well. Again, they have solid default openings with, you know, different variations they can bring to the table. They have a lot of ability to really just dual pressure or even triple pressure mid when you have Flames, Apex, and Ziwu just kind of bunch up together, being able to constantly threaten middle, which just opens up the whole rest of the map because now all of a sudden, you know, your A anchor is going to need support potentially from the mid player who has to kind of just tuck into camera and kind of give up middle, which lets you kind of backstab pinch B, or it gives you an other route into A while you're also hitting it from the extremity, which can, you know, be Rops doing that sometimes. It could be Ziwu sometimes doing it with him, while Flames and Apex kind of lead the other side of it. Then on their B splits, like Apex and Rops coming through B connector with Flames and Ziwu coming through B made, they are splitting that B site and just spit roasting it. Like it's incredible stuff from what they're able to do. And they can just hit you with the fast pace A attacks to kind of change the pace. Just really good defaulting and mid-rounding, really good pace changing capabilities, super strong. Their DusT 2, Rops comes in and plays the B tunnels naturally for Spinks, so they were really able to essentially keep everything the same as far as roles go on DusT 2, and they are playing DusT 2 to a very high level. Really don't really have much else to say there in that regard. Really the only change that kind of happened was that Rops B anchors for Spinks, or for Mezzi actually. Spinks was a B rotator, so now Mezzi has become kind of the B rotator in CT middle, but he's playing it just fine. So that's like the one pivot they had to make on DusT 2, and it's worked out just fine. No issues there. On Inferno, Rops was 1-for-1 for Spinks in the apartments on the T side. Then on the CT side, Mezzi again makes the pivot to help make room for Rops, taking Spinks' A rotator position, while Rops takes up the A anchor position for Mezzi. So Rops got his spots, but Mezzi was able to pivot, just like he did on DusT 2 to a new position on the CT side of Inferno and excel. And this team looks so deadly on Inferno. It's ridiculous. Like, they have such good fundamentals, and just like the way that they triple pressure B with Mezzi, Apex, and Ziwu is fucking unbelievable. Like, they are so good at B controlling, and because they're able to do that, they're able to feint it and then to go quickly up middle. They can just sometimes sneak 3 guys up arch side because they put so much B pressure early that you have to respect it and at least alt a little bit more vulnerable, as your CT defenders are probably having to play like double pit or pit balcony or like pit sight or something like that to respect how things are playing out on the B side. And they're just so good at misdirection, split pressuring, the feints, just making all the right moves. The fact that Flames can be an aggressive factor in the mid boiler while you have, you know, that Mezzi Ziwu Apex combo being so good at pressuring B. they just have so many options on how they can play their Inferno T side. Then their CT roles are, fantastic with Flames and Apex buddying up at B, and what they've done, at Zebu's mobility, and, Rops and Mezzi doing fine on the A side. And then Mirage, they're just a very deep strat book, can play defaults just fine. Rops kind of comes over and plays the A extremity, and is playing a B rotator position, and, for Spinks. So he was kind of 1-for-1 for Spinks on the CT side, and again was able to take over A just fine on the T side. Messi, has to adjust a little bit, but not too much, because Messi could kind of play both extremities depending on the round last year. And again, incredible playbook, incredibly dangerous at playing the 4-1s and 3-2 quick splits, incredibly good at mid pressure. Their A splits are phenomenal as far as how they vary their numbers, either boosting window, how many numbers are coming connector, how many people are coming ramp and palace. You never really know. Then they can hit you with the fast B just to change it up, like just phenomenal stuff. And then their nuke has looked very good. Rops has come in very naturally as a lobby player on T side and a ramp player on CT side. Mezzi playing the A anchor position on the CT side, and kind of being in the mix with Flames and Apex and Yard on the T side. Then on Train, they just started playing this map with this lineup, but they're already a 3-0 record on the map, if I remember correctly. And things have looked very natural. Rops being that like inner halls player and inner anchor on the CT side makes perfect sense. Flames being that T main player and an outer player defensively makes perfect sense and plays his entry role. Apex roaming all around the map and being an outer guy defensively. Mezzi being that Ivy guy on both sides of the map when they implement Ivy on the T side. Good standard stuff, but also just good at mobbing out T main and pop and outer splits, and they can play the standard inner executes the way you need to from what we've seen so far on Train. Obviously, it's still early days on that map. But yeah, this team looks absolutely fucking scary. And if they keep up this pace, again, they could win the major. They could have the first era of CS2. This team is just so well constructed. Apex, a top IGL in the world, who's also fragging at a pretty high level so far this year. Zebu, one of the best Swiss Army knives in the game. Yes, a primary opper, but when we got a rifle in his hands, there is no drop-off. The guy has crazy impact with a rifle in his hands, both as an opener and trader, but also as a clutcher, as we've seen so far a lot this year. Rops coming in as that just amazing extremity player and, CT anchor. In very rare cases like Mirage, actually a good mobile rotating rifler as well. Then Flames, one of the best entries and playing his CT spots to a very high level. And then Mezzi, again, don't want to count this guy out. I feel like he has played his role as well as you need him to for this team to be successful. The fact that their map pool is so damn deep, the fact that they're already won 3 tiles in a row and they're beating all the top teams to do it, this streak of series that they're on right now, this is just rare stuff that we have not seen in Counter-Strike very often. And so even if it were to end now, this first 4 months of the year, what Vitality has done has been an epic story to be one of our first major storylines, really, of 2025, in this first quarter of the year. And again, if they can just keep it going for a couple more months, because they can roll it into Austin, when we go into the July player break, they will have that 6-month window where it was their era. And whether they build on that from that point forward will also be another question that we get to follow. But just wanted to at least celebrate what they've done now, discuss it, because it's been incredible to watch. If you folks enjoy this content, please do like and subscribe. Catch you next time.